the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Please be seated. In today's gospel, Jesus again offers us a parable that, as we have seen before, reveals a deeper meaning. The holy can be prideful, the lowest of the low can be humble. In this upside-down world of Jesus, we again find that the last will be first and the first will be last. So the intended theme of our parable today is fairly obvious. Luke begins it. He also told this parable to some who trusted in themselves that they were righteous and regarded the others with contempt. As in our gospel last week, as a preamble, Luke tells us what he wants the hearers to hear. Jesus favors those with humility and shuns those who are prideful. So what is it that's wrong with pride? I take pride when I cook a nice meal at home. Our high school students here, I know we have here, a couple over here, take pride in a good grade on a paper or scoring a goal in a soccer game. But I think that Jesus is criticizing a different brand of pride, one that goes beyond healthy self-esteem. Our gospel writer describes the Pharisee as one who regarded others with contempt, and in his prayers says, God, I thank you that I am not like other people. It is this kind and degree of pride that judges others and elevates ourselves, that is what Jesus condemns. I first learned about pride when I was about 5 years old. As I've shared before, my parents were recovering alcoholics, active in Alcoholics Anonymous. My father was sponsoring a young man. If I think of him today, I would judge him to be about 30. I remember he was tall and thin, and even though he was young, he was missing some teeth. And so one Saturday, my father went out to an AA meeting with this young man, and the young man brought his 3-year-old daughter. So she was to stay with my mother and me. And I was told to go play with the little girl. And I remember that she was drinking from a baby bottle filled with red Kool-Aid, which I thought was strange for a 3-year-old. I also remember she had ruffles on her socks, but couldn't tell you anything more. Those struck me. We were in my bedroom twirling around, and suddenly the little girl threw up her red Kool-Aid all over my room. I was appalled. And I'm sure my mother was very nice about it and cleaned up the mess, but I was not. When my father came home, I said something like, Daddy, that little girl is icky. She is still drinking from a bottle, and she threw up all over my room, and her dad is a bum. My father looked down at me, kindly but firmly, and he said, don't ever think that you are better than anyone else. I never forgot that message. C.S. Lewis said some powerful things about pride. He says, according to Christian teachers, the essential vice, the utmost evil is pride. Unchastity, anger, greed, drunkenness, and all that are mere flea bites in comparison. It is the complete anti-God state of mind. It is pride which has been the chief cause of misery in every nation and every family since the world began. And Lewis is right. Satan's sin was pride, He wanted to ascend to the throne of God. Adam and Eve wanted to be like God. Pride fed the philosophy of Nazism, infusing the people with a sense of racial purity that justified the murder of millions. Reinhold Niebuhr says that pride is the basic human sin, to fail to recognize that man is the creature and not the creator. We live in a culture where we are trained to believe that we are the creators of our own reality. We labor and we're compensated for that. We believe that we are at cause and the cause for our lives. The Pharisee in our parable today is standing by himself, but in the middle of the temple for all to see, bragging about his holiness. You might note, though, that the Pharisee had much in common with the tax collector. In those times, the Pharisees would have participated in a collection of tithes to be paid by religious Jews. Temple taxation was as oppressive as Roman taxation and produced a significant burden on the peasant population. It would not be uncommon for poor farmers to live in squalor, obligated to pay taxes to Rome, as well as temple tributes. So although the Pharisee claimed to be a holy man, he was, in fact, a leader in a religious system that oppressed the poor. In contrast, we find the tax collector standing far away from the crowd, beating his chest, saying, "God be merciful to me, a sinner." The tax collector, we know, is hated for collecting the financial obligations of Rome. But in this parable, he offers his humble dependence on God's mercy. In his humility, the tax collector is forgiven. And in response to his acknowledgement of wrongdoing, Jesus declares, "For all who exalt themselves will be humbled, but all who humble themselves will be exalted." What is it about humility that Jesus is so fond of? What is it that humility provides to us? It seems to me that humility frequently begins as a result of things not going our way. We want a new job, but we don't get it. We hang on to a relationship, but the other person walks away. We end up in debt and have to borrow money. We try out for a sports team, or we try out for a play. We don't get chosen. All of these things cause us a sense of losing something we want and grieving the outcome. But at the other end of this loss is the reward of humility. The event, our disappointment, has taken us down a peg. We are not the hotshot that we once thought we were. Humility has leveled our playing field. We are just as good as everyone else, but no better. Pride is the complete anti-God state of mind, as C.S. Lewis says. Humility is its antidote. This is the desired state of mind that Jesus rewards. And you know, there's another wonderful thing that becomes available when we're humble. We find God. It seems that when we are in a state of humility born of loss, we find cracks in our armor. The defenses we construct to appear fearless are damaged. Where we were once formidable and well defended, we have lost face. And through the cracks in the earthen vessels that we are, God enters. We are far more open to God as creator than we are laying in a heap on the floor. And years ago, when I found myself in such a heap on the floor, I read the book, The Prophet, a little skinny book. There is a passage that speaks to the value of pain, the parent of humility. Your pain is the breaking of the shell that encloses your understanding. Even as the stone of the fruit must break, that its heart may stand in the sun, so must you know pain. And could you keep your heart and wonder at the daily miracles of your life, your pain would not seem less wondrous than your joy. And you would accept the seasons of your heart, even as you have always accepted the seasons that pass over your fields. And you would watch with serenity through the winters of your grief. So once again, we see the upside-down ways of Jesus. The pious leader is not praised. The humble tax collector is exalted. In our day-to-day world, that makes no sense, but it makes perfect sense in God's world. The writer Graham Greene says the following about this conundrum. You cannot conceive, nor can I or anyone, the appalling strangeness of the mercy of God. The appalling strangeness of the mercy of God. And we can be grateful for this appalling strangeness that offers us a love that overcomes our pride, our shortcomings, our smallness, and it is a love that will never, ever let us go.